Welcome, I'm Dr. Maureen Frank, host of today's Lobocast at Sul Ross State University. And joining me are 3 graduate students in the Natural Resources program. So first, I'd like each of you to just say your name and share either a one-sentence summary of your project or if you have, say, the title of a thesis project.
I'm happy to be here. My name is Julie Myers. I am looking at oil and gas well pad site reclamations in oil field outside of Odessa.
Great.
Hi, I'm Eliana Dykhouse, and I'm investigating pollinator and plant diversity in response to different mowing treatments.
Hi, my name is Curtis, and I am estimating population sizes for Montezuma quail.
Excellent. Great. Okay, so we're going to dive in a little bit to each of your programs here in a minute, but a lot of our audience is other students at Sul Ross today. And so with a lot of those being undergraduate students, they might first be wondering, why grad school? What brought each of you to where you are today to be deciding that you wanted to go to more school after you were already done with some school?
I really like school. I am one of those people who gets really excited for the end of the summer because that means the start of school. So I've been out of my undergrad for a few years, but have always wanted to come back. And one day, if I want to get a different job somewhere else, having a master's degree might really make a difference. So I love Sul Ross, so why not come back?
Yeah, a little bit of the same for me. I did my undergraduate here at Sul Ross and then dove straight into it without a break. So a little bit different from you, but I really enjoyed the environment. I love alpine and I wanted to stay here. And then I also thought that it would be a great challenge. I was challenged during my undergrad, but I thought that this would be a little bit different because you're more of your own motivator. You don't have those hard deadlines as much. And so I thought just that it would be a really good growth experience for me in that way.
So I had a job right before COVID, and everything was planned out. And after it, I was going to decide to go to grad school in Montana. And then COVID hit. So I kind of went away from school, did a couple of side jobs, and I decided I wanted to get back in the field, work with other people in my degree, and yes.
All right, so let's talk about the meat and potatoes of your projects. And everybody's kind of at a different stage of where you are in your research. But Julie, what is your project? What do you wake up thinking about every morning?
Usually, well, we just started on my project, so I haven't done too much. We're really starting to get into it in the next couple of weeks. But we're looking at how we can clean up a little bit after oil field because, it booms and busts, and when it busts, there needs to be a good way to kind of clean it up. So I just think about how much of an impact that can have later on. So right now it's a little bit of short-term stuff. So I'm excited to get to see what happens with our different soil treatments and see how we could clean things up.
So what do you mean by soil treatments? Are you adding things? Are you washing the soil?
So we're doing a couple different things. It's called soil amendments. So we're changing what happens with the soil. So in some places we've added little water beads. They're called hydrotane, and that just collects water and holds water in the soil a little bit. We have biochar, which is just exactly what it sounds like, charcoal made up of biodegradable material like wood chips and things like that. And again, that holds nutrients and water in the soil. Then we have these soil erosion blankets, which is just basically straw woven together that hangs out on top of the soil to hold water in and kind of keep the temperature down. And then we've reseeded everything, and we have different combinations of those different treatments. And then we just have to pray for rain and see what happens next.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's really easy to think about soil as just dirt, right? Like it's just there. And so we don't necessarily think about it being something that needs to be healthy, right? When we think about ecosystems and animals and plants, it's easy for us to see the health of those things. And I think we forget that our soil sometimes is supposed to do all of these things. It's supposed to hold water and hold nutrients and provide this medium for our plants to grow. And if the soil's not healthy, it's not going to do those things. But it's easy for us to overlook that. What have you learned about soil since you started this? I know you've just started. Was there anything that's new to you about kind of the soil and what it does for us?
Just like you said, I'm pretty new into this, so I haven't looked too much at it or really the science behind it. But the soil that I'm working with has a lot of caliche in it and a lot of rock litter. So that I think is also going to play a big part in it. So I'm interested to see how much rock makes a difference in the dirt.
Yeah. That we think of it as just dirt, right? With these different amounts.
I shouldn't have called it dirt.
Rock. No, that's okay. That's okay.
That's a naughty word in the soil world.
It is. That's true. I wasn't going to call you out. I just meant to say we think of it as just something, we don't always have to think about how much rock is there, how much organic material is there. It seems pretty detailed, but it's really important to the health of the system. So, yeah. Eliana, tell us a little bit more about your project and where do you dive in? And you've actually got a couple field seasons under your belt.
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to be able to start the actual field part of my project when I was still in undergrad. So I got a little bit of a head start with that. But I'm happy to say that we just finished up our second field season. So right now I feel like I have bugs coming out of my ears. That's a really gross way to say that. But we use three methods to sample pollinator diversity. So first were bee bowls, and those are basically just little different colored cups. Red, blue, and yellow to attract the bees. They're filled with a little bit of water and soap to break that surface tension. And so we have 75 plots, and we have 3 of those at each plot. So that's a lot of bugs to collect. So we're working on identifying those right now. So that's where a lot of my brain power is going. And I'm new to bug ID, so that's a bit of a hill to climb right now. And then we also use sweep nets to look for caterpillars at our vegetation plots. And we're using a little bit of a new method. It's kind of a test to see how this works, but we're using game cameras at our plots to see how many butterflies are flying over. So those are a lot of videos to look through as well. And then on top of that pollinator component, we're trying to connect that change to changes in vegetation. So we did vegetation surveys as well, and those were line intercept surveys. So that's kind of it's a tedious process. It's basically measuring what plant there is along a line for every single centimeter along a 4-meter line. So it's a kind of a tedious process, but we're happy we finished that. And then we'll just do it again next year as well.
So you mentioned that you're new to the insect
I am.
identification world, and compared to say the tropics, the Trans-Pacific Coast doesn't have as many insects, but we're still talking about thousands of species.
Yeah.
So where do you start with something like that when you're learning something new? What kind of process did you go through?
Oh man, it's hard with, I think, bugs in particular. I come from more of a background of plants. I did plant ID during my undergrad, and there are a lot of resources for plants. There are books, and it's all over the internet, and there are databases for that. Bugs are a little bit less of a common hobby than other groups of organisms like birds and plants, and so it was a lot of Googling words. So as I had those first bugs come out of the bee bowls, I was utilizing some apps like iNaturalist, which were incredibly helpful, just to get me an idea of what basic group the organism was in. And then I could use, there's also some great online resources that I have found that help narrow it down even more than that. Books are a little bit tricky with bugs because there are so many. It's really hard to capture that diversity in 200 pages. But they can also, there are some good field guides out there that can kind of help get those basic groups. So yeah, I'm still in the start of that process, and it's been hard, but we also have a professor on campus that's incredibly knowledgeable, and a collection on main campus that can help with that sort of thing.
It's a little bit crazy to think that 200 pages is not nearly enough to capture what you're trying to do.
When you have 4,000 species of bees in North America, and I mean less in this area, but still that's thousands of species to narrow down from, it can be kind of intimidating.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got your work cut out for you.
I do, but I'm excited about it.
Awesome. That's the best. Curtis, take us on a deep dive of your project. What all are you working on right now?
So I'm about to start the analysis stage, and how we're measuring the population is we're setting up recording devices in the Davis Mountains Preserve, and we randomly selected the location, and I'm taking a subset of the 40 ARUs that were placed, and there's a 200-meter buffer area around that, and we're walking that transect, and we're documenting if there's any foraging activity, and we see like a male or a female, and this is all done during the breeding season because it's easier to get a population estimate. And we're relating if we see the male or female and to the time of to the time period, it's recorded on the ARU and seeing if there's a correlation.
So I'm going to define a term here real quick for everybody. ARU is an automated recording unit, correct? And so what I think is neat that people who aren't in the field of natural resources may not realize is we do a lot of combining new technology with old technology sometimes, right? So you've got some really fancy recording devices that are going to pick up Montezuma quail calls and other bird calls too, right? And we actually have an automated process to sort through those calls. But also, you're going to walk around in the field and see if you can see what the birds have been up to, right? See what they've been doing. And we have to combine those methods sometimes because it takes multiple ways of looking at it to figure out the answer to a question. Tell me what Montezuma quail foraging, or is for everybody that doesn't know what foraging is, finding food. What does it look like when Montezumas have been looking for food in an area?
They are a very elusive species and not a whole lot's known about them, but they're foraging. It almost looks like a divot in the ground, to where if you were to throw like a golf ball, a baseball, and it makes like a crater, it's not very deep. It's maybe a couple inches, but the diameter can be about the size of a softball. And they eat tubers and bulbs, which are roots in the ground, and you just kind of look for like random circles.
Yeah, I love that description because that really is what they look like, right? As if somebody just dropped a golf ball or a softball on the ground, it leaves that little divot. Some people actually call them hog quail because they're going to be rooting like how hogs do, but I don't always love that term because hogs are just, if we're talking about wild invasive hogs, right? They're big and they're nasty, and this is a much smaller, cuter, and that's a native species, right? So it's, I understand the behavior, but I don't love that term for them.
But then can be difficult because there are squirrels and they do a lot of digging, so it's sometimes difficult to tell. But also always take photographs, and then that way you can kind of reference back to it.
Yeah, it's kind of detective work, right? And you can document what you see. Yeah. Right. So for this next question, I'm actually going to flip and start with you, Curtis, because the other two ladies did their undergraduates here as well. What brought you to Alpine, and what do you like best about Alpine now that you're here?
I honestly found out about Sul Ross. My dad went to a quail convention and actually met Dr. Luna. And that's kind of how I heard about Sul Ross. And then I did some digging, and it basically was a perfect match because I love the outdoors. It's a really good school for a wildlife degree. And I just get to meet people within my field and make new friends.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's why a lot of us like it out here. It's a really outdoor friendly school, unlike the rest of, not that the rest of Texas can't be outdoors friendly, but we have a greater percentage of the year that has good weather for being outside, right? And we've got access to great places to go. So on that note, that was actually perfect because that's how I'm going to change the question a little bit for Eliana and Julie is, having been here for your undergraduates and now you're here again for grad school, what is like a local favorite spot or like a local hot tip that you say if somebody's a new student here or maybe they've been here for a couple of years and they might not know about this, where do they need to go here in Alpine?
Man, Julie, do you want to take that one first?
I think, I would normally say Judy's Bread and Breakfast because they had the best cinnamon rolls, but unfortunately they're not around anymore, or for now. I don't know if that'll ever change. But I guess really a tip is to call the business places that you're going to go to. Because their hours online are rarely the hours that they actually have. But I'm in the desk hiking up on the hills, up on the hills behind the campus is always a really good and easy way. It's not hard. I've done it in Crocs. But so if you're a beginner hiker, it's a perfect place. Or even if you like a more intense hike, like you can make it as hard as you want to.
But if you're a beginner hiker, maybe wear tennis shoes.
Yeah.
Or hiking boots. Okay. Eliana?
Well, I don't know, maybe in town.
It doesn't have to be in town. Out of town, in town.
I'll recommend some places in town, I guess, too. When I first got here, I'm embarrassed to say, my first impression of Alpine, I come from the coast, and so I was so used to seeing green everywhere, and I was really afraid when I first got here because there wasn't any green, and I thought that was kind of my impression of Alpine at first, and so it was negative. But then as soon as I actually moved here, I realized there's actually so much stuff to do, and I'm glad there's not green lawns everywhere now, actually, because it's probably not what's best for this ecosystem. But I think that walking downtown, there's so much charm downtown that I didn't notice the first time I was here. I love going in the galleries. Again, one of the galleries is no longer with us, but I think they're going to bounce back still. So I love, just walking around town. I think it's a great atmosphere. I like that Alpine is so slow paced. It feels like it's kind of got an old timey feel in that way. And then I just love the Fort Davis area too. I would say if you have an afternoon or maybe a weekend to go, I would really recommend starting out with the Davis Mountain State Park. It's a great place. It's got some easy hiking trails and then some longer ones if you want to do some more serious camping. But that's where I would recommend people go for the first time, especially if they want it a little cooler.
Yeah, and actually, I love the plug for Davis Mountain State Park because I'm going to tie this to Curtis's project. If you haven't seen a Montezuma quail before, there's been a pair coming into the blind that's at the Interpretive Center, and they've got their chicks with them. And this is really there's only a few places in the state, right, where Montezuma quail occur, but this is really the only place that you can see them on public lands. So it's a great opportunity to go in and check those out. I saw them the other day. They had 7 chicks. So they're about full size, though, so they're not the cute, tiny little fluff balls, but they're doing well, which is good. It's good to see that many surviving to this point in the year. Yeah. So to wrap up, I wanted to ask if each of you would just share with me what's next. And I think grad students hate that question sometimes because you're like, I don't know. I don't know what I want to do when I grow up yet. But that doesn't necessarily have to mean what's next, like for your career or academically. It could be what's next in your project. Somebody in the last episode answered what's for dinner. So I'm going to let these folks guess who that was because I think they might know. But what's next, Julie?
Well, I already have a job my dream job with Parks and Wildlife. So what's next for me is finish school in the next few years. And then I guess see what happens. My husband and I might move out of state. So that's where I would really want to have the master's. But we might be putting some roots down in Alpine. So I might just be here and keep doing what I love until I guess I don't love it anymore.
You'll be enjoying that job without grad school. You'll realize how much easier it was
than
you thought. Eliana?
For my project, classes are the focus right now, and then of course IDing and maybe writing sometime in the near future. But for life in general, I would love to work in education and outreach. I think that's what I have enjoyed most when I've had the opportunity to do those sorts of things. I just love sharing with others, and I think that's a really fun environment. So that's kind of the goal. I don't have a certain place that I want to do it. I've lived in Texas my whole life, and I'd love to experience some other places. So I don't know, options are open, but I'm excited to start those things.
All right, so you get a bonus question because you enjoy outreach.
Yeah.
What is something that you wish that you could tell all the students here that's important for conservation?
Oh my goodness.
That's a huge question, I know. Now, what's a conservation message, like today's conservation fun fact of the day or today's take home?
Well, I would say for me, I don't think I noticed things enough when I was growing up. I would say that's the biggest piece of advice that I would say is just start looking around. Whenever I learn about a new group of organisms like bees, I had never thought of or looked at insects that much at all, and now when I go on a walk I see them everywhere, and so there's so many opportunities to learn, even just walking into your backyard. And so I think that's the first step. Like, people think you don't have to do something crazy to get involved, just on your own time and learn to enjoy it, and doing it in that casual way I think is a really good way to start. That's what I would say.
I love that. I love that. I've heard a quote, and I'm going to mess it up, but you never realize how many shades of green there are until you learn what different types of trees there are, right? Because you open your eyes to how much is out there. And I remember that from when I took dendrology as an undergraduate. I thought I had no idea there were this many types of trees on campus until I started to learn them. So I'll go ahead and add a plug in addition to our Davis Mountain State Park plug. The iNaturalist app, or you can also download Seek. Seek is by the same organization. Okay, but it's fun because it gives you open it up, it knows where you are, and it says, go find these things. And it just opens your eyes in a way that I think is really important. Just learn about the place where you're living.
Yeah, a great place to start is actually on the mall, on campus. So in between all the buildings,
Trees.
we have a bunch of different trees. That's why they call it the mall, because there's so many different trees. So get an app, go out there, and go see what kind of trees we have on campus.
You'll never be bored on a walk again if you start.
Oh yeah,
Look around and look down.
Well, and there's a cactus garden out in the front part of campus too. So yeah,
It does all have labels.
Can't guarantee that the labels are correct anymore, but yeah.
Curtis, what's next for you?
Is to finish grad school and then hopefully get my dream job in the Texas parks and work either as a technician or a park interpreter. So leading nature hikes and educating the public on flora, the fauna.
Okay, so now you get a bonus question also because you want to potentially lead nature hikes. The ladies got this question, but where's your favorite place here around Alpine to go take a nature hike?
I haven't explored much, but I do like Hancock Hill, just because that's easy access. I really haven't kind of explored a whole lot to really have a favorite.
I love it too, though, and it's so accessible, right? You don't even have to have a car. If you live on campus, you can just go for a hike up Hancock Hill.
And it's close to the town to where if you happen to get lost, there's always a person up there. So it's
right. You have cell service, right? So like and there's actually, I think you can pull up on Google Maps, the maps of the trail and kind of follow along where you are. So it's a great beginner hike. Again, if you're a beginner, don't wear your Crocs while you're hiking it. But if you're at that Julie level of confidence with your hiking skills, then maybe you can even pull it off in a pair of Crocs.
It was just poor planning. Really. Okay. I wouldn't say it was a level of confidence.
Okay.
I would also just recommend the park. Like if you want to, it's a great place to
there's
see
owls
birds. Yeah. So
Owls. We had a Lewis's woodpecker last year, we're very far east on the range for a Lewis's woodpecker, and they're very big and a nice pink head. So I snuck in some of my bird nerd there. So thank you.
Raccoon that lives around the amphitheater too.
Oh, perfect.
He was there all summer.
So open your eyes because it's all around you.
Yeah,
Always.
even in town.
All right. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you spending time with us today. That concludes this LOA cast, and we'll see you out in the field.
Thank you.
you.